Welcome back to Face the State. I'm Ariana Bennett. Thank you for staying with us. Well, we are talking about the ongoing battle over how to handle vacation rental homes in South Lake Tahoe. On one hand, we have neighborhoods complaining about disrespectful renters and a new slate of laws designed to keep them in check. On the other hand, we have the vacation rental owners who give tourists affordable places to stay and use the industry as a source of income. So for that side of it, we have Josh Puryew with Lake Tahoe Accommodations. Josh, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So how long have you been renting properties to tourists?
Yeah, so Lake Tahoe Accommodations has been in business now for 38 years. We started in 1979. It's a single family, husband and wife team operation. I've been doing it for about 14 years now.
And you guys have quite a few properties?
Yes, right now we manage about 200 properties lake-wide. I manage about 80 of them in the city of South Lake Tahoe.
So I imagine the advent of Airbnb and VRBO, apps that people can use has probably helped the industry really grow.
I believe it has. It's very tough to decide that, because we've always been a management company that advertises on our own and has our own website and that sort of thing. We don't rely on what we call online travel agencies like Airbnb or VRBO. But I do see an increase in the number of vacation rentals over the last 5 years or so, although it hasn't been that significant. And then now the city has put in place a cap so they can't actually grow anymore.
So that was kind of my question. We've got this cap put in place and then also these really steep fines. So tell me how different the situation is now compared to, say, a year ago.
Well, honestly, to us, it's not that big of a deal. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are struggling more than I am. Uniquely, we've always been a very proactive vacation rental management company, not only for our owners, but for our guests. We're one of the few, if not the only one, who's still open 24 hours a day. So we greet every one of our guests, and that's been huge for us over the last 40 years, or almost 40 years, to make sure that when we see our guests, we have an opportunity to educate them on all the rules and regulations, go through things one by one, talk about parking, talk about occupancy, noise, hot tub use, things like that. Parking on the street's a big deal now, so we haven't changed our program all that much. We're just doing it a little bit more detailed when we see our guests come and check in.
Right, because the stakes are kind of high. If they have a violation, then they're facing a $1,000 fine, first-time violation with no warning. Have you seen this happen?
Yes. Yeah, it's no fun for the guests. In fact, I had a conversation with one of the enforcement officers recently, and he told me how horrible it is for him having to give the $1,000 citation. And then, of course, if our guests get a citation, we're going to charge them the other side of that. So there's a citation for the owner and for the guest. So now the guest has a $2,000 fine.
Interesting. So then typically the owners then put that fine back onto the guest. So really it's a $2,000 fine. It
really is, yeah. And there's some administrative fees and other stuff as well. So it's over $2,000 for doing something as simple as parking in the street.
That's a huge amount of money.
Oh, it's ridiculous, yeah. And for some reason, it just doesn't seem like the punishment fits the crime.
Right. It seems like, especially for something minor like parking in the wrong place, that does seem a little draconian. But I imagine the idea coming from the government side of this is that if you don't have a steep punishment, they might ignore you. I mean, is that what you're hearing?
That's the idea. Although it really boiled down to noise. People acting inappropriately in the neighborhoods. That's what people are upset about. Parking has never been that big of an issue, except for some of the smaller streets in Tahoe get a little bit congested. Most of our guests, in fact, we've always required on-site parking, park in the driveway or in the garage, but the laws always allowed us to park directly in front of the property as well. With the new laws, they're not allowed to do that either, and it's really difficult for them because when you pull into a neighborhood, there's cars parked all over the street, so it doesn't look strange to just pull up in front of the house. But going back to noise, yeah, I kind of understand. I still think it's outrageous, the penalty. It's $2,000 fine for maybe playing music at midnight or something while you're on vacation. That's really steep. But that was the idea originally, is to stop the bad actors.
I mean, devil's advocate wise, thinking, if this is happening in my neighborhood and there's a vacation rental next door and it's just a constant stream of new renters coming in, and this is the reality every single weekend parties, I can see that getting old for the neighbors. I mean, I understand that, right? I mean, do you see their perspective?
Absolutely, yeah, and I've lived in South Lake Tahoe for a very long time as well, and have had vacation rental neighbors, and if you're having parties next door to you all the time, that is a problem. But it's something that good management has never really had a problem with. Every once in a while we might have a bad guest, and we will deal with that. Being open 24 hours a day helps, and we can take action if we get a call from a neighbor or from the police. But for the most part, we rarely have any noise problems, any issues at all, really.
So how do you screen for good renters?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's always a good conversation about vetting or probing or screening. There's some very simple conversations that we have. One of the things that we do that's unique is we have a phone conversation with every one of our guests. So not only do they have the ability to book with us in our reservations department, but they can also go online and just book a reservation. Well, if that happens, then we still make a phone call and have a conversation with them about their plans, who they're here to be with. You know, is it grandma and grandpa coming with the kids, or is it, 10 guys from the Bay Area coming up for a golf weekend? And so that's where you start gauging it a little. And then we explain the rules really simply. You have to be respectful to your neighbors, keep your voices down after 10 o'clock, don't use the hot tub after 10, and park on site. Really simple information at that time. It's really at that check-in process that we do our real thorough screening process, where they have to initial each little thing. You realize you can't have more than 10 people in the house. Initial here that you'll get a $2,000 fine if you do. And so once we do all that, then that really drills it home for the guest.
Okay, so do you feel that other rental companies or online rentals like Airbnb, they don't screen like that?
I hope they do. It's interesting from what I've heard that there's no difference between the amount of violations for managed properties and non-managed properties. And for the owners that I know that do it on their own, they're doing a very diligent process of asking all the right questions and explaining the ordinances, because it really comes down to them. The other thing that a lot of people don't know is the new rule is 3 violations within a 2-year period, the owner loses his permit indefinitely. And so it's very, very important for the owner to protect themselves and make sure that they don't lose their permit.
Wow. I imagine that's got to be happening to people.
So far, as far as I know, it hasn't. In fact, with the new cap, the city only releases new permits quarterly now. And the most recent quarter, they only released 4 permits. So there's not a whole slew of people getting into trouble and losing their permits. Very few even not keeping their permit. So I don't think it's happening as much as you might think. I know there was a couple of houses that may have had a lot more calls than others, and that might be a little bit of a problem with the neighbors too. So, some neighbors don't want vacation rentals at all in their neighborhoods, and they're doing things that they can to try and make sure that that neighbor gets violations. So lots of phone calls, no matter if there's noise or not, over occupancy or not, and then there's lots of police visits to the house, but they're not necessarily getting violations.
Man. So then would you say, given what you just said, that the laws are working? I mean, if it is causing people to screen more diligently and, be very careful about who they let in, is it effective then? I
would believe it is. Again, I haven't had too many experiences with it. We've never really had too many problems personally, but as a whole, yeah, I think our homeowners are probably having to act better. But the thing that most people don't understand is there was never really that large of a problem to begin with. I did a study over a 6-month period, including summer and through the holidays, and I believe there was only 15 noise violations in that whole time period, with 1,400 vacation rentals booking probably like 15 reservations each. So it's not that big of a problem. The most recent report I heard, there's only 8 noise violations in a 3-month period, so it hasn't changed that much. You just have these really, really steep fines now that are outrageous, honestly. I mean, you could probably do it with a $200 fine, but $1,000 and then another $1,000 seems to be inappropriate.
I mean, and there's a whole group of people who, even with what you say, still want to ban it. So they're of the mind that this is a big problem. They've got a petition circulating to get it on the ballot to let voters decide whether they want to ban vacation rentals altogether. Do you think that is possible? Do you think that could pass a vote of the people?
I'm usually pretty optimistic. I don't believe so. And what people don't realize in Tahoe, well, I guess a lot of people do realize in Tahoe, is that tourism is our only industry. There is nothing else. And so everybody feeds off of tourism, whether you work in the grocery store or sell drinks at a bar or work in the tourism industry. One way or another, you're affected by the tourists. If all of a sudden 1,400 vacation rentals go away overnight, and then, on average, we book about 8 guests per reservation, 20 plus reservations a year, we're talking probably millions of people that aren't going to be coming to Tahoe anymore, not going to the restaurants, not renting skis, not going grocery shopping. That's one of the most interesting things about the vacation rental industry is how much money is spent at the grocery store. And so everybody would be affected by it. It would crumble our economy in South Lake Tahoe if it does pass.
And you think people understand that?
I hope they do, and I hope they'll be educated over the next 6-7 months.
Okay, so what do you think would be the best solution to, ameliorate this as much as possible and make everybody as happy as possible?
Well, I think that's what the city council tried to do. For the most part, it takes a lot of hard work from the management companies and from the owners, but you also have to make sure that the guests are going to act appropriately. I don't have the best solution. I have to be honest about that. I wish I did. Some good penalties I think is appropriate. We don't want that bad kid coming into Tahoe and making a bunch of noise in the neighborhood. That's terrible. Nobody wants that. It's tough though because it's really just disturbing the peace. I mean, because whether it's a vacation rental or not, that person should be cited for making noise, period, whether he's a long-term rental or a vacation renter or a homeowner. And so it's really tough when VHRs or vacation rentals are getting picked on. We do want to stop the bad actors, but $2,000 fines doesn't seem like, I just don't see it being necessary. Okay.
Do you think that that's going to change?
I hope. Our council's somewhat open-minded. Some of them have, they like to think a lot, and I think they've seen these fines. See, one of the things that's been really terrible for the vacation rentals is this parking issue. The majority of all citations have been because somebody's parking in the street, or because they're wheels in the dirt, or something really, really simple that was written into the ordinance. And the council's starting to understand that $1,000 or $2,000 fine is too much for something so simple like parking in the street.
When they could just move their car.
Yeah, they need to know too. Right. I hope that the city council, and maybe in November, I believe there's 3 incumbents that may or may not be there afterward, and maybe a new council is the right thing. Some slight adjustments to the ordinance needs to be done right now, but some more major stuff to individual circumstances like parking needs to happen pretty quick too.
Okay, well, we are about out of time, but do you have any quick message you want to leave us with?
Please come to Lake Tahoe. It's not as bad as you think. The vacation rentals are a wonderful way to vacation, and we want all the tourists to come.
Yeah. All right, Josh, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Well, that is it for this episode of Face the State, but for more information or to see past episodes, you can just head to our website. That's ktvn.com. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll see you next week.